Something enormous is happening in the Pacific Ocean, invisible to most of us, but powerful enough to reshape weather across the entire United States. NASA satellites have detected a massive buildup of heat beneath the Pacific's surface. And scientists say the conditions now look eerily similar to those seen in 1997. The year one of the strongest El Niño events in history exploded onto the world stage. Could El Niño 2026 become another climate giant? And if it does, what could it mean for America? On June 11, 2026, NOAA officially declared the arrival of El Niño. For months, sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific remained at least half a degree Celsius above average. Half a degree may not sound like much, but in the world's largest ocean, it's enough to alter weather patterns across the entire planet. Therefore, scientists immediately began watching the Pacific with intense concern.
Satellite data confirms a significant warming trend along the equatorial Pacific, indicative of a developing El Niño.
Because El Niño is not simply warmer water, it's a giant shift in the atmosphere and oceans that can trigger floods, droughts, heat waves, and powerful storms. While NOAA was measuring ocean temperatures, NASA was seeing something even more fascinating. The ocean itself was rising, not because of melting ice, not because of tides, but because warm water expands. As water heats up, it occupies more space. The sea literally rises. Using the Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich satellite, NASA observed huge areas of elevated sea surface height stretching across the Pacific Ocean. These red patches were essentially giant signatures of heat, and they revealed something critical. A massive reservoir of warmth was building beneath the ocean's surface. Months before El Niño officially arrived, NASA satellites had already detected warning signs. Gigantic swells of warm water, hundreds of miles wide. Scientists call them Kelvin Waves. Normally, strong trade winds push warm water westward toward Indonesia and Australia. But in early 2026, those winds weakened, some even reversed. Therefore, warm water began moving back toward the Americas. The eastern Pacific started storing enormous amounts of heat. Cold water upwelling was suppressed, and the ocean's natural balance began to shift. This hidden heat beneath the surface is what worries scientists most. Because a shallow layer of warm water may have little impact, but a deep reservoir of heat can power an extremely strong El Niño. Then came a startling observation. According to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory scientist Séverine Fournier, conditions in the western Pacific looked remarkably similar to June 1997. That year, a super El Niño emerged. It triggered devastating floods, billions of dollars in damage, and major weather disruptions around the globe. The eastern Pacific in 2026 is not yet as warm as it was in 1997. But more Kelvin waves are approaching. Therefore, El Niño is still strengthening, and scientists don't yet know how powerful it may become. As Fournier said, for now, it looks like it's going to be a big one. If El Niño continues to strengthen, America's weather may begin changing dramatically. The southern United States usually becomes wetter. California, Texas, Arizona, Florida, Louisiana, all could face increased rainfall and flooding risks. Winter storms may become stronger. Atmospheric rivers could become more frequent. And communities already vulnerable to flooding may once again face dangerous conditions. While the South becomes wetter, the North often experiences something completely different. Warmer winters, less snowfall, reduced heating demand. But warmer winters also affect water supplies, agriculture, and ecosystems that depend on snowpack. The effects ripple through the economy in ways many people never realize. Here's where things become complicated. A strong El Niño usually increases wind shear over the Atlantic Ocean. Therefore, Atlantic hurricanes often struggle to form. That sounds like good news. But the Pacific usually becomes more active. More tropical storms, more hurricanes, more moisture moving toward North America. And weather systems don't always follow historical patterns perfectly, especially in a warming world. Scientists are now asking a bigger question. How will El Niño interact with climate change? The Pacific Ocean is already warmer than it was decades ago. Global temperatures continue to rise. And every major El Niño now occurs in a different climate than the one before it. That means the impacts we see in 2026 may not perfectly resemble 1997. They could become even more unpredictable. At this very moment, satellites are watching, scientists are measuring, and the Pacific Ocean is still releasing new clues. More Kelvin waves may be on the way. More heat could still emerge. Whether El Niño 2026 becomes another super El Niño, or remains a moderate event, may depend on what happens in the coming weeks. But one thing is certain: the climate giant has awakened, and millions of Americans may soon feel its effects. Because sometimes, the most powerful forces on Earth begin quietly, thousands of miles away, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Subscribe for more science documentaries and climate investigations. Because sometimes, the biggest stories on Earth begin quietly, thousands of miles away, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.